Today's episode has been brought to you by OfferingTree. OfferingTree is what I use to register students for online classes, workshops, and trainings. And I've just started to use them for booking my podcast calls. Why? Because they make everything so automatic. I love that time zones and Zoom links are all done for me. I don't have to think about either of those things. Also, when I have a question, they are so quick to answer me either in an online chat or a quick email with a real person giving me a helpful answer. If you need a website or a booking and payment software, check them out. We have a special podcast discount for you over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Pelvic Health Professionals, an online membership for yoga teachers, PTs, movement educators, healthcare professionals, and anyone wanting to learn more about pelvic health. In there, we connect in live calls, we hire guest experts to teach us the most up-to-date information, and you get to attend live calls or watch the replays and get your specific questions answered. Join us over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her. This podcast is being recorded on Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga land, also called the Bruce Peninsula in Ontario, Canada. If you are new here, you might not know that I'm also a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, and the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. Returning listeners, you know the drill here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you are connected to information and ideas that are going to support you as you're building your yoga business. Because I get it, leaving yoga teacher training and jumping out into the world of teaching along with running a business can feel very isolating. But you are not alone. There are so many yoga teachers around the world feeling just like you are right now, dealing with the struggles and the challenges that you are dealing with. And this podcast gives you a place where you can hear from them, especially when they have really helpful information to share with you. Doing a podcast, creating a podcast can also be really isolating. I just want to say that. Here I am recording in my office with what was a warm tea. It's now a cold tea and a microphone to keep me company. Oh, right. And Leo Cat is here. Say hello, Leo Cat. Lately, Leo is coming into the office to make sure that he's here on podcast day, and then he waits until I do my sound check, and that's when he starts purring like that. So I decided to catch a little bit of purring for you. So as I was saying, sometimes podcasting and also teaching yoga can be very isolating. And that's why when podcast listeners, yoga teachers, reply to my weekly emails, it is such a highlight for me. And so I wanted to take some time today to share some recent emails that we got back after episode 294 with Gabriela Fearn, How to Plan a Yoga Photo Shoot. I'll link to that episode in the show notes, or you can find it by going to our website, theconnectedyogateacher.com, and typing photoshoot in the search bar at the top. And one note also before I get right into the emails today, the emails from you, I want to invite you to send in your questions and your thoughts about whatever, the podcast, if you have questions about teaching yoga, if there are things that we haven't covered on the podcast, or you have thoughts on what we have covered, we love to hear from you. And there are a few ways that you can do that. Please remember to include as much information about you as possible, along with permission to share it on the podcast or not. So make sure to include a link to your website or maybe your social media page, your name, your pronouns. Tell us where you're located and what is the work that you do. If you want to leave a voice message, you can do that over on our website. That's over at theconnectedyogateacher.com. Also on our website, you'll see that there's a place where you can join our Facebook group. If you search for the Connected Yoga Teacher group on our website, that's another place to have conversations, more of an online thing, not really something that we necessarily share on the podcast. But that's so great if you're feeling isolated and you're feeling like you want a supportive network of other yoga teachers. And then the third way that we can connect is if you're on our email list. So there's a form on our website. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom of our homepage, we read all of the replies. And if you give us permission to do so, we might even share it on the podcast. Alrighty, let's dive right in and hear from our listeners who wrote some emails about doing photo shoots. Oh, one other note before I dive in. I really want to share that we got a lot of replies back from this email. And so I just wanted to tell you a few things that I put in that email in case it helps you for making your next email when you want to get some engagement, when you want to get people emailing you back and being in communication. So one thing to note about this email that went out is that it had a question in the subject line. And we know from just, articles about emails and statistics and data, often when there's a question there, people are more apt to answer. Also, I put in people's first name into that subject line as well. So I use ActiveCampaign as an email software. I'll link to ActiveCampaign in the show notes. It is one of the more complex and expensive email softwares out there, but I really like that I can do a lot of things like automations and have reports and all kinds of things. So I'll link to it in the show notes. So the subject line was first name, have you done a yoga photo shoot? And then in the first line of the email, or the first paragraph of the email, I should say, it says, hi, first name. So it picks out the first name of my email people. Have you done a yoga photo shoot before? If so, how did it go? I would love to hear about it. Hit reply to this email if you want to share the story. And then I went on just to say how I feel about photos, and then talked about our podcast episode with Gabby. And this really got some engagement. And that's what we want with our emails. So let's say you're sending out an email to your yoga students. How could you use this? Use something that they talk about quite often. Maybe yoga students are asking a question in class like, what's a good yoga pose for when my hips or my pelvis feel uncomfortable that day, or my muscles feel tight, or I've been sitting down a lot? That'd be a really good email. So it'd be so-and-so, are you feeling discomfort from sitting a lot? Or does it feel like you're sitting down too much or something like that? And then to go into the question and ask people to respond with their experience or what they're feeling. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you because I think we can apply this to our own yoga business. When something works over here, I like to tell you about it. So the first email that I got back was from Beth. Beth's website is thisisyourbliss.com, and I'll make sure to put that in our show notes. Beth writes, hi, Shannon. Thanks for the chance to share and for all your great podcasts. I've really learned a lot about marketing and niching these past few months from you and your guests. I've done a few photo shoots over the years, and I've managed to have fun at most of them. My most recent one, I decided to hire a photographer friend of mine, and it made it so much easier because I loved her work and she was a friend. That level of comfort made it much easier. I felt like I could be silly and that we didn't need to follow the quote-unquote norms of traditional photo shoots. I started by moving the way I wanted to move, yoga asana and other movement practices, and she just grabbed moments. I let go of fancy or challenging poses and played. She was able to capture these sweet, inward-focused moments of me practicing the way I hope my students experience their practice. By the time we got to the headshot part, I felt free and easy. We also did photos of me teaching. The only thing I wish I had done differently is set up our location at the yoga space differently. I didn't think about the prop wall in the background, and my photographer didn't either, but it's a small thing and the photos still look great. I can't wait to listen to this podcast. Hope you're well, Beth. Thank you so much, Beth, for not only listening to the podcast, but then taking the time to reply to my email. It really means a lot, as I said. I love that your photographer friend was really able to capture those inward, subtle moments. And I feel like that's a really special thing. Also, when I went over to Beth's website, I noticed it's an OfferingTree website, and I just absolutely love the bright colors and customization on there. So I'll make sure to link to Beth's website, thisisyourbliss.com, in the show notes for our listeners who want to check out that website. The next email is from Jenay. Jenay writes, Namaskar. I have a few friends who are photographers and I'm not afraid of the camera. My struggle was finding someone who could get the lighting and colors right. I wanted my space and the practice to look warm and inviting. It's not the poses that were important, but rather the energy depicted. So that's Jenay of Lake Tahoe Yoga, and I'll make sure to link to your website, Jenay. That's laketahoeyoga.com. And I just want to say I completely agree. Our photos that we choose for our websites, our emails, and our social media posts, they should be about the energy that we want to convey to our potential students or our existing students. Really fancy or difficult yoga poses can look really cool in a photo, but I think quite quickly they can intimidate the new to us students or the new to yoga students for sure. So that was a really great reminder. I just like that you focused on the energy, and I'm also inspired that you don't find any struggle with being in front of the camera. You're not afraid of it. I was taking notes here. Thank you so much for your email, Jenay, and I'll link to your website in our show notes. I wanted to pop in here, Connected Yoga Teachers, just for a moment to tell you about a bit of news and then also to give a shout out of thank you to the team over at OfferingTree. So they make today's podcast possible, and they also are doing so much more to help yoga teachers. They host free workshops, so if you haven't heard about those workshops yet, anybody can attend those. You don't have to be an OfferingTree user. Make sure to get on their email list or check out their Facebook user group. Anyone can join that so that you know when the workshops are happening. And they're also adding to their website software for yoga teachers. So you heard it here first. This is like breaking news. Well, maybe it's not quite breaking news and this is the only place you heard it, because if you're on their email list or you're in their Facebook group, you likely already heard this big news. But I recently checked this out. They have an update so that OfferingTree users can customize the headers and footers of their website. And what I really love about this is that they send along a Loom video showing you how to do that step by step. So I'll put that link in our show notes. And this is something I appreciate because I'm such a visual learner. So I can see the video. They also always include a helpful article. So for some of you, you're like, no, I do not want a video. I just want the article. They also include images on there and like step-by-step guide of how to do things. It makes it so easy to follow along. And I just had a lot of fun today changing the footer on my OfferingTree website today with my custom brand colors and social media links and other cool things. And stay tuned because I have also recently heard that another big update is coming. I think near the end of November 2022 or the end of this year for sure. There's this big update coming so that you can really customize your pages and your website on there. So if you don't have a website yet, or if you're looking for a booking and payment software to integrate with your existing website, we have a special listener discount for you over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Now let's get back to hearing from you, dear listeners, in your emails. This next email is from Reneé, who was on the podcast as a guest back in episode 167, where she walked me and us, all of us, through her process for recruiting and hiring someone, which she actually helped me with years ago. She shared all the steps in that episode. It is absolute gold if you're looking to hire someone to help you out. So go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/167 if you want to find that episode, or you can type in Reneé into our search bar and you'll find it. Reneé is also someone to follow if you want to learn about getting more done and having more time to spend doing things other than work. So Reneé replied to our email, and here's what she wrote. I had a lovely yoga photo shoot, and it was a ton of fun with my photographer. I felt more confident, though, when not striking a quote-unquote pose, yoga pose that is. I'm probably due for another shoot. Now, this was a snippet of an email. Reneé wrote some other, just personal, us catching up. But this I wanted to grab and share with you because thank you so much for this, Reneé. It's so helpful to remember to try other poses outside of just traditional yoga poses for your photo shoots. We'll include a link to Reneé's website. That's over at Reneé-Clair.com. It'll be in the show notes for today's episode as well. Helen replied to the email and said, Hi, Shannon. What a great subject. I've done a yoga photo shoot back in the summer in the park. I saw an advert on a local Facebook group from a photographer who had just fled Ukraine and was keen to get some work and build a UK portfolio. She did it for free, but I signed all the rights to the photos over to her. I'm allowed to use the photos for my website, social posts, flyers, etc., and she can sell them as well. It's worked really well for both of us, and I'm happy with the photos. She took some really great ones. I wouldn't have been able to afford to have a yoga photo shoot otherwise. Helen from Chamomile Lawn, and Helen's website is chamomile-lawn.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. What a great share, Helen. You supported a photographer who is just starting their business up, and I appreciate how it helped to build their portfolio as well as helped you as a yoga teacher. I would really love to hear the name of that photographer. If you have it, feel free to share it with us in the show notes over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/298, along with a link, because we would love to give a shout out to them and help lead other people over to their business. And we'll also put links to each yoga teacher who sent an email in our show notes. And I'm just curious now, Helen, Chamomile Lawn, that's your business name and your website name. I'm wondering, do you have a full lawn of chamomile? Is that possible? That would be amazing if you do. I want to learn more about lawn replacements. I've been playing around with that in my own garden. So if anyone knows of that, let me know. This is completely unrelated to podcasting or teaching yoga, but it is taking care of the earth. Our last email here is from Gail. Thank you so much, Gail, for sending this along. And I've taken out the name of the photographer and replaced it with so-and-so. So Gail and I both had a photo shoot with this exact person, and we shared a similar experience. And in our emails back and forth, that was really cool to figure that out. But I don't think it's helpful for us to actually release the name of who the photographer was. So Gail wrote, Shannon, I've done a yoga photo shoot with so-and-so, who's a yoga photographer. I didn't love the shoot. It was a deal that was being run through a yoga conference, and it felt rushed and uninspired. I've seen so many beautiful shoots that they've done, so I had that expectation. I've also had great shoots with my sister, who's a professional photographer. Sometimes I think you need someone to have a sense of who you are to bring out the best. I don't blame so-and-so for the shoot. I may have just thought that they would work their magic, and ultimately that had to come from me. Thanks for all you do, Gail. Now, I was so amazed that Gail had a similar experience to me, so I wrote back to Gail saying, I'm glad you shared this with me because I had a very similar experience. I also once did a photo shoot with so-and-so, and because I see such fantastic photos from them, I had high expectations as well. I was also a bit disappointed. I still think their work is amazing. I was just expecting the actual photo shoot to be something more than it was. They didn't give much guidance during the shoot. What was interesting during that shoot is that somewhere this particular so-and-so photographer talked about how a fancy camera was not really the solution or what was needed, that anyone could do this work with a phone and some imagination on how to capture the shots. So that's just another inspiration, connected yoga teachers. Get out there, grab a friend who has a phone. If you cannot plan a yoga photo shoot, get outside or find a fun indoor space. And I have to say that all of these emails that you sent in, they were like a pep talk for me because I really dislike having photos of me taken. It's not something that I've loved, but I do have to say that I do love capturing other people in photographs and anything out in nature. So thank you so much to all of you who wrote in for reminding me of this, for reminding all of us of these great tips. And just thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast and reply and tell us your own experience. Again, all of the show notes are over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/298. Check those out. Click on the links of those yoga teachers. Give them some love. Maybe you have a comment that you want to share or a yoga photo shoot story that you want to share, and you can do that in the comments below. Also, if you want to hang out in real time, Connected Yoga Teachers, in December, we have a live call, which is Yoga for Menopause, that's happening December the 12th. To sign up and join this live call and to get access to everything else inside of Pelvic Health Professionals, go to pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Huge shout out to our team over here, Suzanne, Crunch, and Sinead. Thank you so much for all the work you do to put this podcast together. Thank you also to you, dear listener. You are here each and every week. You have amazing questions. I love it when we're in conversation. And even when you don't send an email or a voice message, it means a lot to me. You are hanging out here with me, having a listen while you're doing whatever it is you're doing in your busy life. It means a lot that you've taken this time. Oh, one thing before I go, I want to give a huge shout out to my brother. He does not listen to the podcast. He will not be listening all the way to the end here, I don't think. But it is his birthday coming up. And he's just one of my best friends on this planet. And he's an amazing person. Him and his partner foster dogs and cats and do cool things and hike. And he's a software engineer geek over there doing his thing. And he's the guy that I can call if I want to talk through a problem that I'm having in my life, or I want to talk through a software and technology problem that I'm having, and all the things in between. So a huge shout out to my brother. I actually get to see him very soon because we are organizing a 70th birthday party for my dad, which will be happening right away after this podcast is released. So big shout out to my brother Conrad. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, Connected Yoga Teachers, you know what I'm going to ask next. What will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?